Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. So welcome along to my segment called Big Little Small Talk. It's a segment where I get to go and talk to anyone in the community that I think is interesting, but I particularly like to go and talk to our community sponsors because they've got a special love for community radio. And today I'm at the Toowoomba Hospice and I'm speaking to the chairman of the management committee, Graham Barron. Now I know a lot of you will know Graham because he's been a very prominent figure in the community and he's got lots and lots of stories to tell. Welcome along, Graham.
Well, thank you, Megan. Yes, I would have a lot of stories.
You've done a lot in your life, haven't you?
We often go to functions and my wife will be sitting up at the front and she gives me the wind up. Come on.
Time to go. Stop the chat. Well, you're probably better at the small talk than I am.
Oh, no.
You might be an expert.
No, not an expert. No.
Now, we're here today in O'Quinn Street at the hospice, and I must admit, thankfully, and a lot of people in the community too probably haven't had a contact with the hospice and they don't know what it is. So can you explain exactly what the hospice is?
The hospice is a place where we care for the terminally ill in the last stages of their life. It's a 6-bed facility. When did it start? I was on council at the time, the Toowoomba City Council, and Sister Frances Flint, the Brigidine nun, bless her soul, she's not with us any longer, she approached Tony Burke. Tony was the mayor at the time, to see if he would host a meeting of a group of people interested in constructing a hospice. And Tony said, yes, of course, sister, we'll do that. I'll get one of my little councillors to chair the meeting. That little councillor happened to be Graham Barron, but that goes back in 1997. So I've been involved right from the start. It was a big task. What we had to do, of course, was to get the community to understand what a hospice was. I can remember the time when Tony asked me, and naturally I said yes. I said, what's a hospice? He said, I don't know, you better go and see Sister Frances. And once I found out what a hospice was, I could relate to my mother, who had passed away a couple of years prior to that. We're not in opposition here, Megan, to any of the hospitals. We work very, very closely. But the only difference is it's in a home-like environment here. And my mother would have been one of those sort of people that she liked the hospitals, the hospitals here looked after her, but a hospice would have suited my mother right down to the ground. So there was the interest and we went from there.
You said Sister Frances Flint was the initiator of it,
yes.
And she was a St. Friscan, is that right?
No, Brigidine sister.
Brigidine sister, okay.
Sister, yeah.
So is it a denominational facility?
No, it's not.
So if you're any denomination, you can come?
You don't have to have faith at all. What Sister Frances was all to do with the euthanasia issue going back in those times.
Very pertinent at the moment, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course her views were very strongly against that, and that's where it started from. But no, you don't have to have any faith. We've all got faith of some kind, but you don't have to particularly to any church or anything like that. Sister Frances was a Catholic nun, but anyone can come here. So
and how do you get referred here? I know my own mother died in the Wesley Hospital, lung cancer, and we were fortunate enough to have, a hospice type environment where we had a record player in there and we all sort of came in and sometimes we sat around and played records and sometimes we read the paper to mum. And so how do you get to come into the hospice?
It's a question that's asked a lot. It's in conjunction with the family, firstly a doctor or a physician, the family and our director of nursing. Mm-hmm. And what happens is we get them to come on the list. People often ask me out in the public, how do I get mum into the hospice or things like that. I may be chairman of the management committee, but I can't do that. So what I do there is I refer that particular person to our director of nursing, who in turn talks to the family and the doctor. Anyone can come here, but they have to be terminal. A lot of people get us mixed up as an aged care facility. We're not an aged care facility. We're a place where people spend their last moments with love, care and dignity. I always say people don't die at the hospice. They come to the hospice, to be cared for by professional people and with love, care and dignity. And we've created a lot of friends over the years. We've catered for about 1,670 clients since we took our first one on the 1st of July 2003. And everyone that comes in, they remain friends of the hospice, and we keep in touch with people up to 12 months afterwards. So, but it's a referral base. You just can't walk in. You must first of all, your doctor is most important. And the doctors, we've got a great team of doctors that come here. The doctors have to be credentialed before they can give admitting rights. But they sort of help us along. So, but you must have be referred here by the GP.
Now, Graham, I read somewhere that it takes an eye-watering $1,750,000 a year to run the hospice. Is that correct?
1.9.
1.9 now. I must have been reading old news somewhere.
That's right. See, it was about 1.8 last year. We just revised our budget because we run this as a business, Megan. It might, we provide specialised care, but it's got to be run as a business. And we sat down with our accountants, Power Tynan, and this year it's about, say, $1.9 million. Now, where does that funding come from? A lot of people ask. The Queensland Government, Queensland Health, irrespective of who's in power, we've had no trouble at all. Going back, I can remember Mike Horan's always just saying, just remember who's got the purse strings. And that's true, We don't rock the boat. If Queensland Health want us to jump 6 feet, we jump 6'7".
And are they funding the whole thing? No.
No, they're not. That's another interesting question. They give about $880,000 a year, the Queensland Health give us, and the rest comes through Department of Veteran Affairs, private health funds, and the general community. The community, I suppose, Megan, would give about $550,000 towards that.
Right. So every year then, you're charged with thinking we need to raise about $500,000.
At least from the community, but the money from Queensland Health is crucial because that's half of it.
Yeah.
And Department of Veteran Affairs, private health funds. A lot of people think too that, our licence, we're classed as a private healthcare facility. The word private throws it off a bit, but that's just the term with Queensland Health. You don't have to be in private health funds or anything like that.
Well, that was my next question. So if you come here, you do, I guess. You come here, you didn't say you don't come here to die, you come here, what was the wording that you said?
Love, care and dignity.
That's right. So you don't pay anything?
No, nothing at all. But what normally happens, Megan, you'll find that families will look after them. It comes to the funeral, donations might go to the hospice, or they might do cooking, or they support our fundraising events and all those sort of things.
So what are some of the things that you do? I read somewhere that you've got your major events, like trash your hair. What are some of the other things?
Hang your boss out to dry.
What happens with your boss out to dry?
And what you've got to do is get up in the forklift and get the chairlift sort of thing, right up in the sky. Mark Munro often says to me, I'll get square with you, boss, you're going to send you up in the cherry picker. But that's the idea of put the person up in the cherry picker, and then you've got to get sponsorship to get them down. This year, it's a lot of people pre-prepare it, but puts a bit of fun.
Right.
And we did it in May this year, and it was surprising a lot of younger people were there to support us, Yeah. And this year we made about $55,000 out of it, which is very good. So
what type of bosses do you get? You get all types of bosses?
All types, yeah.
What's the longest someone's been left up there with no one really prepared to bring them down? No,
they usually come down. One I always remember was that Mary Wagner, Mary Wagner from Wagner's, going back about 3 years ago, one freezing morning out of Tilly's Spares Parts, she went up in this cherry picker, took her phone up, and she raised about $30,000, I think it was, just for the morning.
My goodness.
Yes, and he's married. Married at her age. She's a lovely, lovely person, lovely supporter of the organisation. Yeah,
support the hospice.
But Mary was up there with her little mobile phone ringing up. Hey, Megan, listen, I'm at Tilly's tractors. I can't get down with your sponsor me. So
you always have these major events. What about the race day?
The race. We've just had our race day a month ago. The best we've ever had. We talk about COVID, and COVID has been a real curse. But what we've found is that the community now opening up their purse strings a bit more. Just say, for example, the hospice couldn't have any events last year. We'll make up for this year. And, it hasn't affected us all, no.
Do you think people have got more disposable cash because they haven't been able to travel?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do you think perhaps they're sort of confronted? The pandemic is very confronting. They're confronting their own mortality. Do you think that's got anything to do with it?
I think so, yes. I guess that's probably, given us all a bit of a wake-up call, with how we operate things. But no, they've been... And the Commonwealth Government were very good. They gave us $100,000 through the highlight of the pandemic last year.
So
they gave us money, which sort of helped.
Right. And Graham, the staffing here, you mentioned before about the head nurse, the...
Director of Nursing.
Director of Nursing. So do you have volunteers who work here as well?
We did have about 112 volunteers before we had this problem with COVID.
Wow.
It did drop off a bit. Some people of all ages and older people were a bit worried about coming here, and we sort of have to be careful how we went about it. We didn't have any volunteers here for weeks and weeks and weeks. So the nursing staff had to be... See, with our insurance, the problem was that with our insurance wouldn't cover volunteers under a pandemic type thing,
where
our staff were covered. But we've had to bring people back in. We're up to about 92 volunteers, I think, now. They come with all different areas, different parts of the world, and they come here because they want to come here.
Yes.
Some come here because they've lost a loved one here in recent times. But we recruit, we try and get as many as we can, and I always say every one of us, like you and I, have both got individual qualities and personalities, and if you get people here like that, staff and volunteers, you've got a great setup, because
Do you ever sorry, Graham, to interrupt, did you ever end up with too many volunteers? Or could you never have too many volunteers?
You can never have too many volunteers.
Right. Yeah. And if someone wanted to volunteer, what would be the process for them? Do you have information sessions?
We do. Yeah. We've got a volunteer coordinator in Shireen, does a great job, and we have an orientation here, just a simple orientation that people have got to go through. They must be qualified as a volunteer for our insurance purposes. When we started to bring the volunteers back, people like myself as a volunteer as well, we had to go through a training program. Like when I first started here, we just elected to the board and away you went. But now they have to go through a training thing. It's quite a simple. I think it takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. And Shireen, takes people through the orientation process.
Wonderful.
But it is a requirement here. But the volunteers come with special qualities. They come here because they want to come here. They come here.
Do they need to have a police check or a
yes.
blue card, that
yes,
sort of thing?
yes.
Would that be
like
something?
Nurses, for example, are right because through the registration. But yes, you've got to go through a police check. Like I know when we started up again, even myself, I had to go through the training process. I might have been the original chairman, but I still had to. As the boss does, and everyone else.
Did you learn something?
I suppose so. You learn something new every day.
Always, that's
See,
right.
There was safety, fire safety and regulations and things like that. Like when I first kicked off here, we didn't do that sort of stuff. But we're very, very, very fortunate. We've kept a lot of our volunteers. We've kept a lot of our supporters. Some of the volunteers have dropped off. They've helped us in other ways, or they might support our events,
Mm-hmm.
But the race day we had just recently was a real great success. And once again, a mixture of people. And, I think we raised about $26,000 out of that. So,
right. And other community groups will raise money for you, won't they?
And,
yes. And donate it to the hospice, yes.
Correct. We call them outside special events. People, like to give you an example, tonight we're going to the Empire Theatre, and I'm patron of the municipal band, and of course they're putting on a concert at the Empire Theatre. So that's an outside group. In return, the municipal band are quite good to us. They played our Christmas carols and things like that. So,
yeah. So you're a charity of choice for these people.
That's right. Yeah. Definitely. That's exactly right. Yeah.
You're on 102.7 Community Radio, and this is a segment called Big Little Small Talk. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Graham Barron at the Toowoomba Hospice, and he's taking us through what happens at the hospice, and if you ever get to a stage where you're going to need the hospice, we're all thankful that it's here in the community. Yeah. So now we talked before about the money that I call it eye-watering amount of money that you need, but the money that you need to raise from the community, and it's widely recognised that Toowoomba is a very generous community and giving community. What sort of things would, apart from the sort of, I know that there's 24-hour nursing care here, but what sort of things would the money go to? Does it go to things like painting or...
There's maintenance. Mark's got this Adopt a Room program.
Okay.
Where, like my office we're sitting in here now, it's adopted $4,500 a year. So this particular room has been sponsored by our accountants, Power Tynan. So that comes that way.
Right, so that's another one of Mark. So let's talk about Mark Munro, because I think Mark's a fairly prominent figure in the community too. How long has he been? The big fella. Now, what's his nickname? I did see him at the
big fella.
The big fella. I thought it was something else. I saw him at the Christmas lights function the other day, the launch of the Christmas lights, and he was there. I thought he had another nickname.
Barney.
Barney, that's what it was.
Yeah, the fellas from West Toowoomba Lions Club call him Barney. I don't know whether it's from the Flintstones or something like that. But Mark started with us. He was the very first employee. He started with us
back in 19...
No, we opened the doors in 2003, but in July the 1st rather. But we employed Mark. He came along as our administration manager for everything. I'll never forget. I said to him, "Have you got a mobile phone?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you got a mobile phone, you've got a car, here's the keys to the front door, start working." No, not really, but we took Mark on the 14th of April 2003, and he's been here ever since. He's a very loyal employee. He's now called our Promotions and Administration and Fundraising Manager.
And has he ever come up with things where the board says, mate, that is not going to fly. We're not going to do that. We're not going to participate.
No, he normally puts a lot of thought into things. He talks to me first about things, and if I think it's worthwhile, we take it further. I might make a decision on the spot or take it to the board. But see, that money for Adopt a Room, that's one of his concepts, and it's good. And that goes towards the painting and the maintenance of the place.
And the consumables
that's
and
right.
things like that.
Like
yes.
since we've had the carpets replaced, I've been on the third lot of carpet since we opened the building. We paint it every probably 4 to 5 years, and it's due to be painted again. Because you've got to remember, Megan, it's some people's last home, and you've got to make it feel comfortable, clean and tidy and respectable. Beautiful. Not only for the person that's in the bed, but also for the family who come here to visit. Mm-hmm. And our nursing staff do a tremendous job here. You know, you've got to look after the person that's in the bed who is on their journey to eternity in their journey, but at the same time you have to care for the family, because what we've found over the years, you know, when mum's in bed and she's about to go, sometimes a bit of tension builds amongst the family.
I'd say a lot of the time, wouldn't it?
A lot of the time, yeah. And of course our staff have to be right onto that. Mm-hmm. We do have a pastoral care coordinator which plays a very important role. You know, if we do have families that are struggling, and people do struggle, it's amazing. You know, I lost my parents and in-laws all in 4 years, and it doesn't get any easier. But we've got a pastoral care coordinator here that really keeps an eye on that. We've got pastoral care volunteers that come along. You know, like Mrs. Barron might be in room 3 and she's struggling, or her husband is struggling, or something like that. So pastoral care is very, very important.
So people can come at any time of the day or night to see their relatives, is that right?
24 hours, yes, 24/7, you can come any time. Normally when people are sort of getting on the last, the family will stay here.
There's a facility, there's beds and things for them.
Well, we've got a family room here that people can use if they want to use it. But you know, you can come any time.
Right. And you said it's a 6-bed facility.
Six-bed facility. Yeah. A lot of people have asked, you know, would we go any bigger? At this stage, the answer is no. Physically, there's nowhere we can expand to it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But if you get too big, in my own personal belief, you're taking away the style of care that we provide here. As I said earlier, you know, I can't criticise the hospitals at all, because we work very, very closely with them. But it's more like a home-like environment here. Yeah.
Sure. And Graham, I did read that there's complementary therapies. Tell me about that. Here, they're like the aromatherapy and hair care.
We can arrange
podiatry needs.
Yes, right. We can arrange all that.
Yeah.
We have our director of nursing does have contacts in all those different areas. Yeah.
And what about pets?
Yes,
people bring their pets in.
They certainly can.
Yeah,
certainly can. You know, they can't stay here. They must be looked after. Like if someone brings a dog in, for example, well, the owner must stay here.
I'm with you. Yes, you don't want.
I'll tell you something funny about that. Going back a few years ago, I don't normally go into the rooms myself unless I'm asked. Which some of the nurses might say, "Oh, look, Mr. So-and-so's in room 2. If you're here, Graham, would you like to go and see? Talk to her. She'd like to see you." So I'll never forget this time I went to room 2, and she had a little dog there. You think that dog would let me in? Hello, Mrs. So-and-so. Hello.
Just from the door.
Oh, yeah. The dog got real aggressive.
Right.
Because mum was in bed, don't come and interfere. And, you know, the old animals, they're funny sort of people,
Yeah, and probably picking up on the stress as well, I would imagine.
Exactly right, yeah. But
have you ever had to sort of kick the family out because they've been too rowdy, or
it doesn't happen.
They're warring with each other or anything like that?
It does happen. Thank the Lord it doesn't happen too often, but we have had to do it. We have an arrangement with the Toowoomba Base Hospital. If it gets right out of hand, that we transfer the people back to there. Yes, but Megan, it does happen. It doesn't happen a lot. It's like everything in life. 99% of people are right, and that other 1% sometimes.
I'm going to ask you a slightly left field question. Has anyone taken a really, really long time to die, and you've been waiting for the bed? That's a sort of a slightly ghoulish question.
No, the length of stay is important. We're here for the last 90 days of our life now. None of us know when we're going to go. Yeah, but sometimes people have gone home, or if they go over that 90 days, like when it comes up to the 90th day, we don't say, you're going to go.
You're out.
We work very closely with the family to try and place mum or dad, or whoever it may be, in a nursing home.
I'm with you.
Some people do go home, but I guess out of that 1,650, I suppose 20 have gone home, but they've since But sometimes people do pick up, yes.
Yeah,
They come in.
but it's surprising. You say we don't know when we're going to die. The doctors do know pretty well, don't they? They might not be down to the hour, but remember, it was the first time I ever heard that phrase, chain stoking, is it? Where they start to chain stoke at the end. That was something that they happen with a certain way that they breathe, and they seem to know, and then they can call the family in at that time.
Yeah, you can normally tell when people are on the journey, as I call it, but no one will sort of say, "Oh, Dad's going to go tomorrow." Or something
No. But I know, and they said it with my mum too, that because we were there constantly, and it wasn't until we left and she could have some peace that then she went. Have you heard that? Like that they often won't pass while the family's there because
going back to my dad, because the hospice wasn't here when Dad died. He died out at Westhaven, O'Hara Sullivan place, and I'll never forget. We knew he was struggling, and it was about 5:30 in the afternoon, and the nurse said, "Why don't you go and leave the room? Because he's trying to go, and he won't go while you're here." So I'll never forget, they took us out to the kitchen and they made us a beautiful spaghetti bolognese. Remember the things you remember?
Yeah.
And when I come back, I said to my sister, I'll go back and see how Dad was, and he was gone.
Right. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, but
same sort of story.
Same story, Megan. Your dad was struggling. He didn't want to die in front of the kids.
Yeah. And I mean, death is a part of our life. I know that. And a good friend of mine, his father's just died just recently. And I sent him a message and said, no time is a good time to lose your parent. And it's strange that even though we know it's inevitable, we know our parents aren't going to live forever, it's still so sad. Such a sad, it's incredibly sad.
It is,
it's an understatement of the century.
It certainly is, and you always remember them. You know, my parents are out of the garden of remembrance, and I'm out there, I often go out and talk to them. And
do you?
Marlene, my wife, said one day, if your father jumps out of the grave and talks to you, you'll get a bit of a fright. I guess
you retain your sense of humour.
Right. Well, you've got to, and you know, Mum and Dad wouldn't want me to sit around crying because you're not here. You just got to move on with life and remember the good times. I'll tell you something strange here. Mum, I always say 3 Hail Marys because I'm a Catholic, you know. And Mum was funny when we go to school. If there was exams on in the day, she'd say, "Well, listen, say a couple of Hail Marys." See, so I go out to Mum. I'm here to say me Hail Marys.
Good for you. Yeah. I'll just remind listeners that they're on 4DDB and we're in a segment called Big Little Small Talk where I get to go out and talk to someone in the community that I really admire and I want to hear their story. Now, we're talking to Graham Barron, and some people might call me nosy and some people might call it curious, but Graham, I want to know a little bit about, you said that you're a Catholic, you grew up in Toowoomba, is that right?
Yeah, I was born in Brisbane. When I was a baby, Mum and Dad were working on farms around the Mount Tyson area. And when I was about 11 years of age, the people that they were working for sold the farm, so Mum and Dad had to relocate to Toowoomba. And so I've lived here since 1962.
Right. Yeah. And so what age were you when you moved in from Mount Tyson?
About 11, just coming up 11.
Right,
yeah,
so 11. You started school at which Catholic school then?
Yeah, I went to the Brothers.
Right.
St Mary's, went to there. I didn't like school.
Didn't you?
No, I didn't like school. I remember Dad said, well, you can finish at the end of year 10, but you've got to get a job. So much.
Not too much sitting around in those days, was there?
Yeah, but
okay, so you got a job. What job did you get?
Well, I started as a messenger on a push bike. TT Hardware, used to be a hardware shop, was around in those days, and I was a message boy. And Lester Norman, we were talking about Lester
who
before.
We interviewed last week on Big Little Small Talk.
That's right, that's right. He did the same thing. We were both message boys on the push bike.
That's strange, right?
And from there, I sort of managed the department. And then in 1972, there was a vacancy. TT Hardware owned Oki Hardware, and there was a vacancy out there. The manager resigned. So I went out there to sort of fill in the role and eventually took over running the place. So, and then I stayed there for about 6 years. Then I moved back to Toowoomba. And in 1985, myself and 2 others bought the business. And I stayed there until 1994. I ran for council, got onto council, then I missed out the next.
First go?
Yeah, no, that's the second go.
Second go, yeah. They say it's 2 steps.
That's right. And then it was funny, I got beaten at that election when the terms went 3 years, 1997 to 2000. So the hospice sort of come online then for me, and I could devote more time to the hospice. It's funny how things go in different ways. I would say, God probably spared me that time away from council to concentrate on doing this.
So while you were in council, that's when the hospice had started. You said that earlier, and so that's where you your interest was piqued and you were on board by then. Yeah,
that's right. See, and of course Tony, who was the mayor at the time, he was very much for the hospice once he found out what it was. This land we're sitting on here now belongs to the Toowoomba Regional Council. We've got it on a 50-year lease. The new lease has to be signed when I'll be 102.
Okay. Well, we'll see how you go.
Yeah.
So now, a good try to divert the conversation away from you, but we'll go back to you. So you owned the business by then. You went to council.
I went to council.
You enjoyed your time on council?
I did, Megan.
Yeah.
I did enjoy my life on council. Then I had 4 years away from it. Then I come back again and had another go at it. Yeah.
So in the meantime, you got married? Marry a local girl?
Well, it's funny you wouldn't see this. Marlene used to work at TD Hardware, and I always tell the story, when she started, she's 2 years younger than me. Anyway, this young girl started, and I looked at the boy, she's a good-looking chickie, big, tough 16-year-old.
Politically incorrect warning here, listeners.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where Marlene and I met, back in 1968. And she's still with me all these years down the track, which is good.
So how many years is that? Goodness.
47.
47, right.
47 years.
And do you have some children?
Yes, I have two. I have a son, David, works at Whipples. He's an accountant. He works at Whipples. And our daughter is a journalist, and she works for Ian McFarlane.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
She's more on the political side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
and grandchildren?
Two of the best little grandchildren that God ever created.
Not biased.
Not biased.
How old are they, Graham?
5 and 3.
Do you do much duty? You and Marlene have to look after the grandchildren?
Occasionally they come over next Saturday morning. We see them weekly. They come over next Saturday. We're going to babysit them. But the characters of Hayden's 5 and Will's 3, and they're two different type of natures, but they're different. Really changing.
Would you say it's a girl-boy thing, or do you think it's just different personalities?
Different personalities.
Uh-huh.
Like if David and Christina, that's our daughter-in-law, if they'd had 2 girls, we'd love them. Boy and a girl, we'd love them. But they've got 2 little boys, and they're so cute. And they get to the stage, where they really know what they're doing. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's my story. I've lived in Toowoomba for a long time, since 1962. I went to school here to finish my education. I met my wife in Toowoomba. I've got 2 grandchildren, and I'm here.
Yeah. So when you went out of council, Graham, what did you do then?
I went to work for Whipples Autos.
And what were you doing there?
Driving the courtesy.
Presumably not under the trucks or anything like that.
No, we'd have a clue where to start. When it comes to a vehicle, I know how to put petrol in and check the water door, check the tyre pressure. Don't ask me anything else. So I worked there for just short of 10 years with Whipples, just driving the courtesy bus. And there comes a time in life when you've got to retire. Whipples were very good about it. They approached me to see what my plans were for the future, because naturally they had to plan. So I sort of gave them about 10 months' notice, worked in quite well, and did you love driving the courtesy bus? Yeah.
You loved talking to people, I would imagine.
Yeah, sometimes at the end of the day I'd go home and my voice would be gone on me and I'd be totally talked out. But you meet some nice people again, and of course a lot of people connected me to the hospice. They used to call me the hospice man. Yeah, so,
right.
But Toowoomba's a good old place. We've got a lot here, a lot of things going on here. Yeah.
I remember at my dad's funeral, my father was a house painter. He was a farmer, and then he taught himself to be a house painter because when they moved to the coast, he didn't have a profession, so that's what he did. And he was a very, very humble man, and he just loved his 4 daughters and his wife. And I remember at his funeral, there was all of these people there. It was a huge funeral, and I thought to myself at that time, it doesn't matter what you do in life or how sort of successful you are or how big you are or anything like that. What it comes down to really is your family. That's all it is.
Well, I've done a lot in life. I'm 70 years of age, and I stop and think, you're 70. I remember when I was 21, someone who's 70 would say, not that old so-and-so.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the case when you get there.
No, of course not.
I'm blessed I've got, good health. I've got a great family. My wife's probably been my greatest supporter. Because, with your family, someone like your wife, if you want an opinion, they tell you the truth.
Yes.
And you know what you do. And sometimes people tell you things to make you feel right, but my wife and my adult children have been a tremendous support to me. They've been right behind me all the time, and they come to nearly all the events, and it's good.
Yeah, you couldn't be. So now, Graham, you sound like a modest man, but you're Graham Barron, OAM. How do you go about getting an OAM?
You've got to be nominated by someone in the community.
Right, and do you know who nominated you?
I didn't at the time. I'll never forget. It's all done very strictly confidential. And Marlene picked me up from work when we come home. There was a letter there from the Australian government for Graham Anthony Barron.
Oh my God, you probably thought you were in trouble.
Well, I didn't know what it was. I said to Marlene, there's a letter here from the Commonwealth government. She said, give us it here. But what it was a letter asking whether I would accept the nomination as an OAM.
God.
And I had no idea. Obviously, they checked around because I've been involved with a lot of groups. They checked around a lot of places, and but I didn't know who nominated me until the Australia Day thing up at Picnic Point.
And what year was that?
2006.
Right.
It takes about 18 months. It's a long, drawn-out process. But it was Bill and Marge Shaw, and you've probably heard, I think poor old Bill, they'd passed away recently, but he came up to me, he said, congratulations. He said, do you know who put the nomination in? I said, I wouldn't have a clue. He said, it was us. They just sort of...
And I mean, that must have been a terribly humbling
well, it was,
experience.
Yeah, because I am a pretty humble sort of a character, the saying goes. Megan, I do things because I want to do it, but obviously I've been involved in education when our kids went to school and all levels. I've been patron of the Toowoomba Municipal Band and softball everywhere, so a lot of people out there, because I've been probably a real people's person. I like people, and you learn from people.
Yeah, it's a good skill, Graham. It's a soft skill, but it's a very good skill.
It is.
And tell me, do you ever write your name Graham Barron OAM or in brackets, anything like that?
On official letters, I will.
You do?
Yeah. I wear my lapel pin all the time and things like that, but on special letters, I will. Jeff McDonald, for example, every time he introduces me, he says, Graham Anthony Barron, OAM.
Somehow I suspect I know that's probably true. Now, I like to, at the end of our interviews, I like to throw a couple of curly questions. So your question, Graham, is, if you were in a circus, which character would you be?
Probably a clown.
Why?
Oh, I hadn't really thought about it, Meg. That is a bit of a hard question.
They're curly questions, Graham. That's what they are.
I'd be someone there just enjoying myself, probably the biggest clown there, enjoying life and putting what I can into life to make it better for everyone else.
You know that the children are frightened of clowns. You know that. For some reason, I think it's after those scary movies, they've gone off clowns. Okay, well, you're a clown in the circus. This one's probably a little bit more sensible, but what is the worst advice you've ever been given in your life? Can you think?
No.
I think you've probably got a glass half full type attitude, so you probably can't think of the worst advice you've ever been given.
I've always appreciated people's advice, Megan. No, I can't think of anything bad.
What about the best advice you've ever been given? Can you remember? Did your father give you some good advice, or your mother? I
think I had, I know I had a very good upbringing, a good family upbringing, and I think that makes all the things, better, yeah.
Career-wise, someone didn't say, Graham, do something you love and you'll love going to work every day, something like that?
That's right. No, nothing like that. Just got on with people.
It might be like everything, we'll finish up this interview and you'll go, I wish I'd said that to Megan. Yeah. Well, you can give me a postscript. You can, you can send me a text.
I've put everything into life that I've gone into. I've gained heaps personally. I've become a stronger person because of that. I guess there are all the rewards that are there for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm no better than anyone else. Like we've got 35 staff here, 90-odd volunteers. I am chairman of the management committee. I'm like the unofficial CEO. I'm here in a voluntary position, but I get on quite well with them, treat them. I'm no better than them. I'm just part of the team. And if you've got a good team, you get a good result. And the good result here is the Toowoomba Hospice.
I love your humility, Graham. So we'll finish up then. You're a community sponsor of 40DB. What does community radio mean to you?
Well, it's getting the word out there, because a lot of people do listen to 102.7. And I think it's just spreading the knowledge out there, telling people what you do, what you're about. And people, being a local, of course, people know me. Yeah, so...
Wonderful. Well, Graham, I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you today. I think your humility shows through, and if you put OAM on the end of your letters... I was thinking more like of an upgrade, on a flight or something like that. Yeah. You've never tried that, son? No.
It's there. I've been given the OAM. I appreciate it. It's great. But as I said before, official letters I'll sign at OAM. But normally, I just put straight at old Graham.
Gaza. Thank you so much, Graham. Thank you. That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.